Out in Radio Land on AM 1230 WJOB and 104.7 FM. Also, hello to a Facebook Live and Twitter Live crowd, and of course, always streaming live on the TuneIn app. I'm Jim Diedlow. I'm the owner here at AM 1230 WJOB and 104.7 and all of the above. We are located in the Purdue Northwest Commercialization Center. That puts us at right smack dab in the center of all the entrepreneurial startup community that's going on here in Northwest Indiana. We're proud every Wednesday to bring you a live studio audience here in the WJOB Strackervad Till Studios for 1 million cups. It's an instance of Jed Namoni. I do these interviews with folks in the local business community. This is an extension of that. We've partnered with the Commercialization Center and with Mont Hanley, the associate director there, along with the Kauffman Foundation, and Mont is shaking his head because out of all the times I've ever done this, I finally got his title right. So there it is. Yeah, changing the title. There it is. Hey, listen, we have a great presentation here today, but I got to do a couple of announcements. First of all, we want to thanks to Nana's Bakery. Nana brings in all the sweets every Wednesday, and today is no different. There is a peanut butter chocolate thing with like wheat checks in there that'll just melt your brain, and you can't really put them down, and I've had several of them. And we also want to say that next week we'll have one presenter, and that'll be Urban Turban Yoga, and that'll be Tiffany Seibert, and I hope I said that right. Thanks, Tiffany, for presenting next week. We'd like to do 2 a week if we get it, so this is our shameless plug that if you have a startup or you have a business or even if you have a 501c3 that's doing some innovative things, all you got to do is get a hold of Mont Hanley right here at the Purdue Commercialization and Manufacturing Excellence Center. It's late September. It is gorgeous along Indianapolis Boulevard. You can see it right outside of the window here. And on Monday, Mont Hanley and I both attended the Burton D. Morgan Business Model Competition call out, and that is for anyone going to Purdue, any sort of student that is interested in winning up to $25,000 in 3 different categories. There's a small business, there's a social, positive social impact, and then there's one on basically a big open idea. There's first, second, and third in all of those competitions. They give away $100,000 total. It is the first time that we are partnering here in the northwest part of the state with Lafayette on something this large. So anybody who's a Purdue Northwest student you can get in, but it's got to be done by September 25th, so you might want to get on that. That's a lot of notes. Let's get straight to it. These folks live in Highland. They have the best coffee that I have tasted under the realm of Brazilian coffee, and if you guys know, there's just got a slight difference. I just had one, so if I'm feeling like I'm talking a little bit fast, it's also fairly highly caffeinated. I feel like running around, while they're talking, I'm going to run around the center here a couple times, and then everything will be back to normal. Hey, let's hear a big round of applause for Annette McKeown and Elizabeth Steele of Smalltown Coffee Company. Thanks.
Good morning. I am Annette McKeown, and this is my good friend Elizabeth Steele. We're Smalltown Coffee, and we're here today because we want to do things different. We value people, and we think coffee should always be delicious. So we're what you might call unlikely friends. I'm from a small town, and Elizabeth has traveled the world. I love the land, and she loves the sea, and once lived on a sailboat. She's pretty quiet, and it turns out that I like to talk. What we have in common centers around coffee and community. Combined, we have over 20 years of experience in the coffee industry. But beyond that, we truly and simply value people. And this affects everything we do, from how we source and roast coffee to how we do business. So Elizabeth's going to share a little bit more with you about what makes Small Town different.
Yeah, so a little bit before Small Town, I, like Annette said, traveled a lot. I got a degree in peace, justice, and conflict studies. I worked with medical doctors overseas and have also done behavioral health, worked in behavioral health facilities. Annette has a degree in communications, has done counseling, and worked with youth in various ways, and then has spent the last 3 years on organic farms, learning to grow sustainably and responsibly. In the midst of all that, we are trying to find the best way that we could impact people, to help people. We basically just wanted to leave a mark on people's lives. In the midst of all that, too, we kept finding ourselves working in random coffee shops. They seemed like random jobs at the time, but eventually we came to realize it's usually the small things that have the biggest impact. And that brought us to Smalltown now and what we're currently doing. We, like Annette said, want to do things differently. And a couple of the ways we're doing that now is through the way that we're sourcing our coffee. We are roasting it ourselves. So sourcing, roasting, and then the way that we're actually connecting with our community, doing those things all slightly different than normal. Sourcing, we are partnering with a importer that is, their whole goal and mission is to help the small farmer, the people who are investing in their coffee and their farms, and giving them the resources to do that. That we are partnering with them, and then which all of that is producing a better quality product. A lot of roasters are trying to find the cheapest bean to make the most profit, and we are about finding the best beans where people are investing in that and giving you a quality product. Which brings me to the roasting part, where I have some experience at a different coffee shop roasting, and learned to roast in a way that is actually drawing out the inherent flavor and goodness in a bean. It's more of an art and a science versus just throwing it in the roaster and making it all oily and burnt and then serving it. A lot of there's roasters who, because they're buying the low quality, they have to basically burn it in order to cover up the defects and the flaws that are in the coffee, because there hasn't been any care in the growth of it. And next, now going to talk a little bit about how we're connecting a little differently with people.
Yeah, so we had a cool opportunity right off the bat. I think this was already mentioned, but we both live in Highland, and we got connected with the Highland Community Foundation, and we started to kind of brainstorm with them how we could help support the foundation. And we realized we could do a Highland coffee. So we did a coffee tasting at the park downtown in Highland. And Highland picked their favorite roast. And we also had a contest for the art for the label on the bag. So we now have a Highland coffee. This is Jessica. She won the contest. So she's going to be creating, she's already created the label for our Highland. And proceeds from the sale of that coffee go right back to Highland, which we think is really cool. We're roasting right now at Windmill Brewing in Dyer, which has been a really cool partnership for us. Basically, we needed a location, and craft beverage people seem to get along really well. They enjoy coffee, we enjoy beer. And so we're roasting there. Our coffee's in one of their porters. And we're talking about other ways that we can partner. So if you're interested in buying our beans, you can pick them up there now. Wholesale, we're selling our coffee at Grindhouse Cafe. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. They do great work in Griffith. And we've also started selling it retail, so we've got it online for sale. We do markets. And our focus in that, like connecting with folks in the retail realm, is educational. So a lot of people, they buy these beans that we put all this work into sourcing and roasting, and they don't know how to, let's say, make a Chemex or a French press, which are some of the newer ways of brewing coffee really well. So we'll teach them that. And then lastly, we're connecting with a lot of small cafes, and the advantage that they have in working with us over a larger company, say Intelligentsia, is that we can help them build their cafe from the ground up. We have a lot of experience that is helpful to them, and we're very hands-on. So in the future, we do want to have a cafe of our own, but we realize there's a lot of costs associated with the brick and mortar thing. So we have different ideas about how we might be able to make that more profitable, whether it's building a coffee co-op with other small roasters, We'll have educational classes, coffee cuppings. So it's not just going to be a come in and sit down place. I mean, you'll be able to do that if you want. But there'll be a lot going on there, including our roasting and training folks to use espresso machine properly and everything that goes along with coffee. So I'm going to pass it back over to Elizabeth. She's going to talk about kind of our financials, where we're at right now, and what we need to move forward.
Yeah, so even the way we got started is a little different. Both of our dads believed in our vision for impacting people around us, and they both wanted to be a part of that. So they both invested, totaling $60,000. But even how we are in contract with them is a little different. We've set it up so that when we succeed, they're succeeding as well. But they're also relieving us of a yearly debt burden. So instead of the traditional loan model, we are paying them they're earning their interest off of a percentage of our income. So it frees us up to move forward and pursue the things that we're pursuing. But at the same time, they're getting their money back with interest. So their investment has helped us get our roasting facility set up, and then also some equipment to work with wholesale customers and do some markets, get our name out there. So we are in a pretty good place right now, but with future plans of a cafe and beyond, and all the connecting we want to do, we do know we need more money.
Yeah.
So part of why we're here today is we want to partner with our community, and so if anything we've said today has sparked interest or resonates with things you guys want to be doing, we'd love to talk to you and just see where we can partner and connect. And
Good. Yeah. So we're Smalltown Coffee, and we're different because we value people, and we believe coffee should always be delicious.
Hello, everybody out there in radio land. If you're watching on Facebook Live, it's probably a little bit more evident, but we have folks in here giving a presentation, and they've the entire time have been running some video of their shop and how they roast coffee out here in Dyer, Indiana. They are Smalltown Coffee Company. It is Annette and Elizabeth, and they are right here in Highland, Indiana. And as you guys well know, on the 1 Million Cups, Jed and the Money segments, I'll talk to them for a little bit. But if anybody out there on the radio, or quite frankly, anybody that's watching on Facebook Live or Twitter right now wants to call in the next 10 minutes on the question and answers, all you got to do is call 219-845-1100. 219-845-1100 if you're watching on Facebook. You can also just go to the bottom in the comments section, and Sam Michael will pick up a microphone and he will read your question. Of course, we will take questions inside the studio, and there's a microphone right there. So if anybody wants to come, just walk on up to the table and kind of bend down a little bit, and you'll be able to grab that there. Let's go to the phone lines first. We're going to take a phone call on 219-845-1100. Dave, you're on line one. What's going on?
Hi, I just have a question for the ladies, and congratulations on your success up to now. And I'm also a Highland resident. You've picked quite a competitive industry, the coffee industry. You know, we see all the big corporate stores, but I'm just going to really kind of frame this as easy. Do you look at yourself, and one of the things that are very successful in our area, Northwest Indiana, is microbreweries. You'll always have the big, super conglomerate corporate shops and companies, but it seems like the microbreweries are thriving because they have a particular niche. Do you look at yourself in the future as being somewhat of a microbrewery because it is so competitive? And you mentioned you wanted to get into the retail realm, which is just, I have a little experience there. It is a battle for shelf space, as you know. And now you're seeing, the top three. We all know who they are that have retail stores with that monopolizing a lot of that shelf space. Can you briefly explain some of what you plan marketing wise to get some of that shelf space? And the niche you picked is fascinating to me. And do you consider yourself kind of like a local microbrewery? And that's no pun intended.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Dave. Great question. Let's go with the niche first. What is your guys' niche?
specialty third wave coffee, which once you've experienced something like Smalltown, you realize you're tasting something different, which I think sets us apart right away from like a big chain. And you can't really get it anywhere right now. I don't know if you've had the same experience with a microbrew that you really enjoy. So you taste it and you're like, oh, I can't just go to a 7-Eleven and pick this up. Like, you kind of have to go hunt it down. But once you've had that taste, you're willing to do it because it's so much better. And so that's kind of the experience I had with specialty coffee, and I've lived in areas where it's more prevalent and more accessible, but we really don't have a lot of that here. It really is a different product. So I think that's our niche and one thing that sets us apart.
You guys mentioned also here, Annette, I'm going to hold that. You got to kind of hold it just still. They can. There you go. Perfect. Right like that. They could hear you out in the radio. They're like, "What's that sound?" Oh, and that's holding the microphone like that. So I don't know if this is part of your niche or if other folks have a similar niche, but you mentioned like peace and conflict studies. You mentioned about sourcing from the right places and giving back to the community. Mm-hmm. You've had a social consciousness already, what you've stated. Does that set you apart in any way?
For sure. And we say coffee that's about people and it's delicious. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing that we really feel is inseparable. Because if we value people, we want to give you a quality product. And we want to source that, as you said, in a way that has a social conscience.
We're talking to Annette and Elizabeth, and they are out of Highland. Annette McKeown and Elizabeth Steele. And anybody else that wants to ask them a question about their presentation here on AM 1230 WJOB on 104.7 FM, all you got to do is call 219-845-1100. We also have a live studio audience kind of jammed into the Strachan Van Til studios here. So we have somebody that had to come and kneel at the counter. And just introduce yourself and ask your question. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Thanks. I'm Eric. I've got a co-working space in Valpo, and we have people, and we love to go through a lot of coffee, so this is always exciting. Something that you mentioned was the social impact piece. So have you all been working through any sort of B Corp certification, or is that in the horizon? That's my first question. And then my second follow-up question is, I think, Elizabeth, you mentioned the coffee shop is the next step, but then something beyond you alluded to. So what's that beyond piece? That's what I'd also like to hear.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so your B Corp question, I have looked into that a little bit. We aren't currently working toward that, but those are definitely values that we have. The certification is quite a long, intense process to go through, and we've only really been going for about a year now, so still just getting established. But those are definitely values we have as far as, and we want people to know that about us.
Yeah.
Your other question about the coffee shop and beyond, the beyond part, yes. That is where we actually are really going for. The coffee shop is to create a space for our community to be I think ultimately we believe that that Northwest Indiana is supposed to be a place of coming and training, but then also the going out and connecting to the rest of the world. So we want to create a space that can happen, and it can easily be done through coffee because it's already connected to the rest of the world. So it's more of a launching point. So whether it's the local food movement or other coffee shops we're working with,
or even things we haven't thought of yet, which is why we've invited you all to engage with us. We really think we need the whole community.
And of course, we will take your guys' input, any suggestions, that kind of stuff. I do have a couple of more questions, but we are going to go right here to the in-studio audience. For you folks driving around here on Wednesday, September 20th, a beautiful day in the Calumet region. This is Smalltown Coffee Company. It's two gals out of Highland, Annette McKeown and Elizabeth Steele, and they are roasting out of Dyer, and they're presenting their idea right now. And let's go to studio question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kasia Firle. I'm a marketing faculty here at Purdue Northwest, and I've had the pleasure of actually doing some qualitative research for one of those very large companies, and it had to do with price sensitivity and then marketing channel. So one of the things that I found is that depending on who the target market is for coffee consumption, it doesn't have to be very price sensitive. So especially college students, any type of large institutions, hospitals, we have found that the taste for premium coffee, it has really been unmet. It's an unmet
Yes.
want. So that would be a recommendation that I would have for you. That's number one. The second question is this question of channel. You were talking about so far having developed somewhat of a co-op with the local brewery in Dyer, and then of course venturing out into a community cafe. What types of digital online distribution channels are you looking at developing into the future?
Specifically online?
Yes.
Well, we have coffee for sale on our website. You can just get on there and buy it by the bag. If you live...
Say the website again.
www.smalltown.coffee.
There's a .coffee?
There is a .coffee.
Smalltown.coffee, all right.
So many, yes.
Did everybody here know that? I did not know there was Smalltown.coffee. All right, go ahead.
yes,
This is
Smalltown.coffee.
just for the radio audience. This is Annette McKeown talking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you can buy coffee by the bag, and if you live within a certain amount of miles of where we're roasting it, we will just bring it to your house for free. And if you do not, we'll ship it to you USPS 2-day. And we're looking to create a subscription service. We're hoping to release that around November 1st. So never, ever run out of coffee again.
All right, let's go straight to a couple of the. I tried your Brazilian out there, and of course made an entirely inappropriate joke about it. But you have a number of them out here. You've got Brazilians. The three coffees that you brought today are what?
Sumatran, Colombian, and Brazilian.
Okay, and is there one or the other that you guys feel like you've gotten really? I mean, they're all good, but I mean, is there one that really kind of you go, hey man, we got this right. We really think this is the one.
I'm actually super happy with our Colombian coffee. It's probably my favorite right now.
Describe it compared to, well, I mean, I know I didn't want to actually besmirch this beautiful presentation by saying this word, but compare it to Starbucks standard coffee.
Right. So our Colombian it's got flavors of citrus in it and kind of an herbaliness to it.
Nice.
It's also got a sweet, we call it a caramel finish. So kind of a sweetness to it versus sourness. You mentioned Starbucks. So in my humble opinion, I feel like Starbucks, even in their lighter roast, burns all their coffee. So we're roasting it in a way that is drawing out those flavors. Whereas when you roast it too long, you just get roasty smoke flavors, and you're not tasting the actual flavor in the coffee.
Tell us about the Brazilian, and now it's probably all going to be gone. Everyone's going to drink it because I'm pushing it so hard. It's out here at the Purdue Northwest Commercialization Center. Tell us about the Brazilian.
It's funny you're pushing that one because that's the one we find people like the most right now. Yeah. It's a super easy coffee to transition into. If you don't know anything about specialty coffee or what, we have berries on our Sumatran coffee as a flavor note. You're like, I didn't know there could be berries in my coffee. So the Brazilian is actually super easy to transition into because it's got the cocoa-y and nutty flavors of coffee, which people already kind of associate with coffee, but it's highlighting those in a different way that's actually, you're like, man, I can actually taste the pecan in here, which I think I heard somebody say. But it's also still kind of your traditional.
It seems very traditional,
coffee.
but kind of without the burnt taste,
Yeah.
if I could describe it that way. We're talking to Annette McKeown and Elizabeth Steele of Smalltown Coffee today here at the Purdue Northwest Commercialization Center. It is part of the 1 Million Cups series here, live studio audience. If you want to be part of our entrepreneurial movement here along Silicon Boulevard, all you have to do is come out on Wednesdays at 9 a.m., wait till Kuziak's show's done, and then you'll be able to come into the studios and do what we're doing, which is trying to give encouragement and exposure and learn something from young and other entrepreneurs. We have another in-studio question. Go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Jay Weinberg. I'm an entrepreneur. I've got a app I've been developing called Artunity. I'll actually be pitching here on October 11th. So I have three questions, and the third part actually kind of goes to the answer to the first one. First of all, what's like your scale agenda? Actually, can you answer that one real quick so I know if I have to ask the third one? What's your scale agenda? Maybe you did, and I don't know if I missed
You're saying
it.
how big do we want to get?
Yeah.
What's our vision? We definitely see ourselves growing in the region. We want to create cafes that are unique to their location, so not just like a box cafe, but that's actually feeding into what's already happening in the community. And then, with online sales, we feel like our coffee can go anywhere, and we're aware of that and open to that. How many small towns are there in America?
Okay, well, I'll skip to my third question. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say we believe in local, so we don't want to just become a mass producing factory of coffee. So if it does get to the point where we're maxed out, instead of just growing small town bigger, I think we would do more of helping
pockets.
Well,
okay, so that brings me
pockets.
perfectly to my third point, and it's something that Mont actually mentioned to me about Artunity, being that you're trying to reach communities, and that's what 1 million cups does. I mean, you guys are right in the line. So what about trying to reach out to 1 million cups in other communities and pitch your same thing in those communities? And so make it a traveling, this is something that Mont said that maybe with Artunity I would want to consider doing, because there are artists in every community, and that's how you're, to grow. But to maybe pitch, that's just, again, probably down the line a little bit more. But my other question was, are you guys familiar with Grounds and Hounds? I think they actually came up kind of locally, but they're scaling pretty large now, I think. The reason why I bring it up is, I guess I hear you talking about, you're about people, but I'm still kind of, and I'm just still kind of in a fog about it. Is there something that you can attach yourself to specifically? So for instance, Grounds and Hounds, they do 20% of their proceeds to no-kill shelters. And it's specific, and it's wow, if I align with that, outside of even my coffee tastes, I might buy a bag of Grounds and Hounds. So how can you show more about your alignment with people? What does that mean? Like you said, that educational element and some of that stuff. How can you really find a spot where you can say, this is a laser, or do you already have that?
Great questions. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you in October, and that'll be another moment for a shameless plug. Remember, people that are catching this on Facebook Live and Twitter or on the radio, we are looking for people to present here. This is open. All you got to do is get a hold of Mont Hanley. He's going to say some words right at the end of this. Go ahead, guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great question. Since we're still a little bit new, we kind of wanted to get into our community more and see what the needs were before we committed ourselves to one specific thing, because then you kind of alienate yourself from everyone who might not be a pet person or whatever it is. So we've just been, each opportunity that comes to us, whether it's the opportunity to source coffee well or to buy it cheaply, we source it well. If it's a Highland Community Foundation comes to us and says, hey, we're raising money for arts, and also they replace dead and dying trees in the community. Hey, do you want to be a part of that? Yes. And someday, we may need to pick something that's a little clearer, a little more marketable, but we're not there yet, and we're kind of enjoying that.
3 years from now, where do you see Smalltown Coffee?
I would like to see us with a location where we are helping people connect and fostering an environment where people are thriving and connections are happening, and people are using our space or our connections or our resources to even further what they want to do.
Yeah. I would say, too, we've talked about the potential for a coffee co-op. So we like to see specialty coffee grow in the region, not just our specialty coffee, because we found that cafes actually thrive when there's more than one. But we all kind of have to come together, even to purchase coffee, because when we're buying these small amounts, the cost is very high. But if we can all come together with similar values and purchase coffee at once, that will, help us all.
To save Lori Felt from having to ask this question, what can our community do for you?
Come meet us, drink our coffee.
Let's talk about funding. Let's get a little bit more specific. I know you guys, this is a presentation. Some are for funding, some are not. These folks are open for funding. Give us an idea of somebody came to you and they started to talk to you. Well, let's play role right now. Hey, I'm interested. Tell me the number one or number two reasons I should invest my 50 grand with you guys. Don't come here if you're not going to bring your game, just so everybody knows, all right?
That's a good question. She's
Okay.
a money person,
All right,
so
here it
I'm
is.
going to let
You know,
her say it so she doesn't have to correct
You may
me.
have somebody approach you with this question right after here from the
Yep.
live studio audience, or they may hit you up on Facebook because they've watched it, or they may be driving around right now listening, and they're just a angel investor, and they come and say, you got to give me a reason to want to be part of what you're doing. Give it to me right now.
I think the largest reason is that throughout everything we're doing, we're going to be caring about people, and it's not just all the time about making the most profit off of what we're doing, but we're trying to create an atmosphere and even a different way of looking at business, of doing business, and even community with each other that is actually producing thriving people.
So perhaps one of the most eligible investors would be someone who is aligned with a social consciousness, perhaps.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, there it is. Smalltown Coffee, let's hear it for them, all right? Thank you so much. These guys did a great job. They practiced yesterday. I know they were a little bit nervous, but you guys came through like champions. We are going to close down our Facebook and Twitter. Once again, we're going to keep going here with a couple more things live in studio, and we'll actually stay on the radio. But we're trying to, typically, if there's two presenters, we won't go this long, just so everybody knows. But we went a little longer. We have one presenter today. Shameless plug, if you want to present your product, be on the radio, be on AM, be on FM, be on Facebook, be on Twitter, and quite frankly, get the input from a very high-level audience, you got to get hold of Mont, and Mont's email is handleym@pnw.edu. I know the rest of that. Goodbye, Facebook. Goodbye, Twitter. Thanks for watching.